And hello, everyone. Welcome to the Real Estate Show on KCMX News Media 880 and on YouTube at realestateshowOregon.com. I'm Pete Belcastro. This is Alice Lema. We're both real estate brokers with John L. Scott in Southern Oregon. We get together with you once a week to update you on kind of the activity in the Southern Oregon real estate market, which as we go, Alice, we're here in the month of February. It's winter outside. The weather's really been nice this week, and a lot of activity in the real estate world.
Yes, it is so exciting. We're getting more listings on. We have a lot of buyers still out because of the great interest
Now,
rates.
you keep saying we're getting more listings, correct?
Yes, we're getting more listings. Yeah, we had.
The problem
Yes.
is that they're being sold, and we've literally flushed ourselves out of inventory.
We have. It is
Don't you
going
think?
fast. Yes, it is going fast.
We flushed ourselves out, and if you look at the latest stats that came out of the MLS, okay, listings were down 26% in January from a year ago. We have in Jackson County, on the 1st of February, which was 3 weeks ago, 619 properties, including rural properties for sale.
Which is very low.
It's low. We were over 1,000. What, a year and a half? About a year and a half ago, year and 3 months ago, we were over 1,000. And I remember when we dipped under the 1,000 mark, and we have not stopped.
But it's better than it was last month.
Well, that's not very many. There's not much out there. So that change. What that does, though, it really creates an interesting real estate dynamic going on because of the listing situation. You combine that with low interest rates, and we have this kind of a pot-pouring of activity going on across the entire range, right?
We have a lot of buyers out there. We are getting more and more sellers as the season goes forward. But then there's the dynamic of what I'm starting to call a flat market, a stabilized market, a neutral, normal market, where we don't have that volatility of price because of inventory. Because I feel that we've really got to the top of our market for now anyway, and as our fearless leader John L. Scott said the other day, he believes it has to do with wages. Well, there's only so much a person can pay every month.
And if we get to that point, that's why we're talking about how the price ranges have kind of settled.
That's a good word, settled.
There's only so much. There's only so much blood you can draw from a turnip or something out of a price of a house. In other words, a house is only going to be worth so much.
There's only so much a person can pay. So it has to do with not what it's worth, because it might actually comp higher right now for 3 to 6 months, but the demand price is going to be a little bit lower or more stable, because that's really where the income of the buyer is.
And we
so
have
it's an interesting dynamic.
And we do need the area that we don't have a real area of working area of Jackson in our area here to see large wage increases.
Right.
And that's why we're talking that we're at that ceiling.
A nice way to say we don't have a lot of good, high-paying jobs.
Well, we do, but that's part
I say that tongue in cheek.
No, we're okay, but it's only can go up so much at a time here.
Exactly.
And that's where we're at in housing. So that's why, again, you need a good agent, certainly, to be able to help you weed your way through it. Okay, so if you're in, where do you think the 3 hottest areas right now? And we're in the winter. We're in winter, understand that. But what do you think the 3 hottest areas right now in Jackson County are in terms of price increases? Median price values have increased the most. What would you think those are? And I know you don't know.
So are we talking about price points or neighborhoods?
Neighborhoods, areas.
Well,
Medford, East Medford, something like that.
So I'm just seeing a really high demand for single-story East Medford with a little bit of parking.
Okay, RV parking.
Yeah, that's move-in ready. Single story, not too far from the hospital, not too far from the country club. There's almost like an invisible zone. You could almost draw. Yeah, so I'm seeing that would be one of them.
Okay.
I'm seeing
It's not, though, but go ahead.
Okay.
East Medford is not, but go ahead. But you are correct, though. That demand in East Medford is absolutely there. The problem in East Medford right now is listings are down. Let me see. In East Medford, 26%. From a year ago, just in January. So the pickings for those are slimmer, okay? What else do you think they are?
So we're having a lot of activity in our duplex, triplex, and fourplex. Okay. In fact, the prices on those have gone up kind of quickly.
Okay. Why do you think that is?
I think there's a lot of portfolio shifting because of the new rental laws in Oregon. We've had a whole tax year. In fact, that House Bill 608, I think the anniversary is next week, isn't it?
It's coming up, yeah.
Yeah. So we've had a whole
It's been
year.
a year already, yeah.
Right? So
right, because the legislature put that into effect, remember, during the middle of the year.
Right.
It started in February or March. It was odd.
Which is not enough time for people to prepare
Yeah.
with their taxes and their investing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So that would have been my second one.
So what was it again?
Multifamily,
Multifamily's
two
good.
to 4 units.
Okay, I'll agree with you on that, but it's not necessarily of the communities that have the highest
Oh,
median
I'm wrong
price.
twice?
The median price range, the median price increases the most. What do you think those hot areas are?
West Medford and White City.
Pretty close. The biggest increase has been in Central Point. The Central Point market probably right now, I think, is the hottest market in our valley.
Because of you're talking about the prices going up?
Exactly, because it's more affordable right now in Central Point than it is in anywhere else.
Well, and a lot of people want to be in the school district.
Yes.
Those schools in Central Point have a high demand.
And they're building new construction in Central Point too.
That's true.
But Central Point right now is the hottest hottest area in our market. It had a 17% increase in value in 1 year in terms of the median price, which is really high. Okay?
And we do not expect that to happen again this year, folks. So if you're thinking of selling your house in Central Point, please do not list it 17% higher
no, that's true.
than your neighborhood is right now.
The second highest one, okay, is West Medford. Now think about this as we say this, because these are affordable areas.
Well, that's the entry level and also a lot of downsizers. Yeah.
West Medford, a 15% increase in median value in 1 year in sales.
But West Medford is still very affordable.
That's what we're saying. You see where the affordability is and where it is not. And the third one, which is Gold Hill and the Rogue River area up there. There's a lot of activity there.
Yeah.
And again, but
people getting that slice of heaven, a little bit of acreage, maybe on the river.
Okay, what about rural properties? We talk about those all the time. The overall increase in Jackson County was just 2%. That's the ceiling level there is already there.
Right, because if we remind people, a normal appreciation is a steady, sustainable 3 to 5%. So 2% is still kind of in there.
Yeah, no, you don't want it to really. Remember, we're talking about investing in our property, investing to create wealth for ourselves. And the stock market has bigger gyrations. And real estate over the years is more slow and steady.
Except for that one time.
Falls off, but we're not talking that way.
In 2009.
Well, I've been to several seminars and watching and listening about, it's really the lending practice that is so different than it was before.
Right.
I will say that.
Right.
And we have lenders coming here all the time. We talk to them all the time. And even when you're with clients with them, people have to provide the information, not like it was before. So in that respect, I think we're really okay.
Well, and I think that's why when the prices are settling and it feels like we might be going down, we're actually not. We're just stabilizing. And the reason we can say we're not going into any kind of a housing correction right now is because the lending practices are really good and they're safe and they're sustainable themselves.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you on Sarah on all that there, and I'm just worried that we cannot have the large increases in value. We think we've hit that ceiling here in so many areas. Again, you've got lower prices across the valley in the lower price point ranges, and geez, there's no inventory in those. There's a 1 month supply under $250,000, a 1.3 month supply at the next level. There's not much inventory in those lower prices. Are you seeing with your clients? You seeing multiple offers coming, or how are people dealing with this? Because let me tell you, if you put a listing on at $250,000, I guarantee you're going to have 12 showings in the next 2 days.
You might, but what I'm noticing, and I think this is part of having a flat market or a stable market, is the buyers are more picky. It's not like it was 18 months ago where they're rushing in, writing offers on anything, giving up, a lot of their terms and conditions as a buyer, accepting things without inspections, things like that. They're going in and they're feeling like they still have some power. They want the house to be financeable. They want it to be clean. They want it to be nice. And so there's still some number of those houses, even in the affordable price ranges, that will sit.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
If it's not updated, updating is so important now. It's really kind of shocking. I mean, when you first bought a house, was yours updated? We didn't live in a nice house till we were
no.
like
It used to
old.
When I I think when I first got my real estate license, it started. This was 2007, 8. No, you would buy a house, you had to update it yourself.
Right, and
Right?
you were just happy to
When
get
the market
one.
was so bad.
Right.
No, a seller could just put it on if someone bought it. You were so happy somebody was going to buy it, and you as the buyer were going to go, I'll fix it up myself.
Right.
The prices had dropped.
Right, as long as it was
so
in good
low.
shape, but
Yeah.
so it's not like that
Fast
now.
forward, oh, absolutely not.
Yeah, it's everybody wants open floor plan. Even if they're buying in a neighborhood that's 1960 and 1970, they want the walls gone. So you know what else is happening? Construction loans are getting more popular. Rehab loans. We're seeing a lot more activity of that as buyers start to pick and choose. If they can't have the updated house they want, can we go talk to this lender or that lender and actually get the improvements we want and the granite countertops?
Since you brought that up, I have a client. We are buying a property in Central Point, and we are getting a 203B FHA rehab loan.
Okay.
Okay.
So just so that everybody
because you said
understands what this is where you can borrow up to $35,000, right, to do repairs.
Right. You have to do
not
repairs.
Improvement. There are other rehab loans you can actually add shops and masters, but these are repairs.
Yeah. So you have the house, and you go through the process with the 203B loan. The thing that I think is so important is that sellers in those situations, because the sellers have let the properties be the way they are. They need this work. You can't finance them, right, until you do this. But it takes longer to close, and sellers have got to realize that when the buyer is doing a loan like this, you're going to have to give them some flexibility because of all the complications that go into that 203B loan, which are enormous. The appraisers
complication. Do you know
it's
even
so much more complicated than a regular sale would be.
The contractor has to be vetted by the bank, and what that means is that when you say, "Okay, I'm going to do this loan," here's the group, the company, the construction company that's going to do it. That construction company has to file papers with that lender and get checked out.
And so again, you want to make sure you use the correct contractor
who fills out paperwork and returns it.
Because if you don't, the whole thing gets mucked up. So those loans are there, but you're right that the sellers, if you're going to sell a place like that, you got to be reasonable with the buyer of what to expect in a loan like that. And they're out there, and maybe sometimes it's the only way to sell that property. Because I'm not going to give you cash for that property. I still have to put, my God, thousands more into it like that.
Right, but it comes in great if you need a new roof, a foundation, heat, windows, something like that. They really are magnificent. But they do take time, and the seller has to price it so that it's worth the person coming in. Because the person who's doing this, the buyer, they're actually borrowing up to $30,000 more than they're paying
and it costs them
Mr.
more,
and Mrs. Seller.
And it costs them more money in just points, too. So,
and I think, isn't the interest rate higher?
Well, that's what I was saying. The interest rate is higher as well with that. So that's what the point is. So, but you can do them. You just got to be knowledgeable and be careful what you're getting into, and seller and buyer have to do it together.
They have to be owner occupied is the other thing. So if you investors out there are listening and drooling at this idea, stop, because you have to be owner occupied
to get the 203B loan.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, it's not an investor loan. We got a break coming up here. Pete and Alice here today on the Real Estate Show. We're kind of just going over the crazy real estate market we're seeing and what we expect future. We're coming right back with more after this. Welcome back to the Real Estate Show on KCMX News Media 880 and YouTube at realestateshoworegon.com. Pete Belcastro, Alice Lema with you here today, and thanks for joining us on our show. It's mid-February here as we're heading towards the spring selling season, the 3 busiest real estate months of the year, March, April, and May. We're going to have an interesting March, April, and May, believe me. As we talked about so far in the first part of the show, we know inventory is down 26% from a year ago, just in January here. So on only 600 properties across this entire spectrum. And over 100 of those, by the way, are $1 million plus.
Oh, my goodness.
Remember that?
That's right.
So if 100 of those 600 are over $1 million, that leaves the pickings below that even less.
Yeah. It's a great time to sell. It really, really is. Oh, my gosh. We have such great selling conditions.
But also, she says that, keep in mind, we've also reached a ceiling on pricing that you really cannot go much above.
We think
Right?
so.
We
We
think
just
so.
don't
That's
think
what we
there's
think so.
any wiggle room left. We don't see any rooms for spiking up,
Okay.
but we also don't see any room for spiking down.
Right.
That's what a normal flat market is supposed to look like.
Even though lower price ranges, the demand is still there. 250,000, 300,000. Once you get above 500,000, then things change, and that's where the more normalizing stability of the market is.
It is very much a
Yeah.
buyer's market over
Yeah.
500,000.
But below that, it's just crazy. It's still a lot of activity, which is interesting. Anyway, this was an anniversary. I remember it was February 25th, Alice, last year, when Senate Bill 608 went into effect.
And that
Changed the way we dealing with renters and rentals.
Yeah,
right?
that made Oregon the first state in the union to be a statewide rent control state.
Right.
And we've had 1 year now.
How do you think it's gone?
I think it's had a couple of predictable reaction. The short-term reaction is many of our investors are deciding to get out of the business, but that's making room for a whole new crop of landlords to come in and who are willing to put up with the changes.
Who are not so put off by what government is saying you need to do.
Right. And then those investors that do want to stay in, that were in before, are making a commitment for the long term.
Okay.
And the other thing is everybody's raising their rents. Where before a lot of landlords went to sleep. If you had a good tenant, you didn't really bother them with rent
Yeah.
increases. Everybody is doing at least a 3 to 5% increase every year now, and the maximum, if you remember, is 7% plus cost of living. And this year, did you know 2020 the cost of living went down? It's 2.9, and last year it was 3.2.
Really?
And so it's a very subtle difference, but again, this is why we think the whole market is stabilizing.
Well, and remember, a year ago, people were ready to go out and shoot themselves, over this bill.
Well,
It was, but they haven't. I mean,
Right.
we all survived it.
We
I think
did.
the biggest change is that if you own a property and you're going to sell it, and you have a tenant in there who's been there more than a year, you've got to give them a 90-day notice to move. Now that can affect the sale of the house. That's why you have to be so upfront with the buyer. Because the buyer, you're going to have to give them either 90 days or you're going to have to buy them out of that contract.
well, and actually, there's more, because you cannot have that tenant move out unless the new buyer is going to live there. So that's a game changer, because a lot of people used to have their tenants move out when they were selling the house, and then the next person could either live there or
That's
not,
right.
or the next investor could put whoever they wanted to in. That's not the case anymore. You have to if you're an investor, you have to take that tenant.
Well, the investor cannot just say you have to go. It's no cause. What's it called? No fault eviction.
No cause
eviction.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't do that. But if you're selling the house to somebody else, then you have to give them a 90-day notice.
Well, but.
Right? Why are you looking at me that way? What?
Because if it's an investor that's buying it and the investor is not moving in, the tenant goes with the property.
Oh, right. That's correct.
Yeah.
But if I'm selling it to somebody else who's going to move into it,
Then it's 90 days plus sometimes money.
sometimes money. So again, if you're selling or buying and you have a tenant, for both sides again, the buyer and the seller side, be aware of that, because it can muck up the whole thing, especially if the buyer has to get in the house in 30 days.
Well, and remember,
and you've got 90 days before you got to get the tenants.
and what if you have to go to court? Remember the one we did?
We
I think Pete and I were early on last year, as always, trailblazers here.
Yeah.
And one of our transactions ended up going to court twice.
Yeah.
And it was very hard on everybody, because we didn't have any precedent, because it was all brand new.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think in that situation, didn't the seller, did they do cash for key? There was some.
Oh, I can't even remember.
We got them out, but it was with money and a lot of delays.
Yeah, it was. I think we might have been the first ones
I
in
think
the
we
court
were.
under this law,
Yeah.
because it was a
Because
mess.
it all happened right then.
So be aware of those things. It's still there. It wasn't all gloom and doom. And I think what Alice says, the most interesting thing of this whole conversation, was what she says about it allowed, if some landlords got out of the business, it opened it up for others to get in the business.
And rents went up.
And the sad part of that, I agree, is that rents, yes, have gone up, and people are more aware of it than they ever were before.
But see, I think that's the knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
And back then, I predicted it would be a couple of tax cycles. Some people file in April, some people file in October. So we went through 2 tax cycles. I think we're going to go through 2 more, another April. So that's 2 years. And then I think it'll mellow out and stabilize. But we'll have to see. Right now, people are fighting over fourplexes.
Well, I think multifamily housing is just the biggest thing that you can probably invest in right now, wouldn't you think?
Well, I think if you can afford it, yeah, it's a great thing to do. We're going to have, in my opinion, a good 10 or 20 years of a pretty decent rental market. I don't think our vacancy rates are going to be, 2 and 3%. That's a very low vacancy rate and kind of gives the power to the landlord. I think the rental market will stabilize more.
We got to do a show with them, with the rental people, because like the real estate market, there's only a ceiling that you're going to hit in rents.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And we've talked with, Danielle Remley's been with us before from Sterling West. We've talked about that. It only goes up so much. And so have we hit that? If we've hit that in the real estate market, we're going to hit that in the rental market as well, because they follow each other so much.
They do. And the tenants that are out there looking at any given time, they will let you know immediately, just like if you're selling a house and your price too high, the market responds really in 48 hours because everything's on the internet. So if you put your property for rent on Craigslist or with a property manager or whatever you do to advertise it, and you don't have 4 to 6 inquiries in the first couple of days, that is the market speaking.
Yeah, well, you're right. I think one of the interesting stats also talked about the price ceiling. If you look at what the properties, the average property sold for versus what the list price was.
Oh,
it's dropped.
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago. We were talking in the biweekly 98.7% of the list price.
That ratio.
That close you get there. During the month of January of this year, is down to 95%. So again, you have to have the pricing right in order to sell as the highest you can get. If it's not priced right, we're seeing them sit even in the lower price ranges.
So what that means if you're a seller is if you have a ton of equity, that's okay because you can absorb those few percentage points. The days of the speculation selling, which is where people say, well, if I can get X amount, I will go ahead and sell. But if I can't get that, I just don't know that that's going to work so much this season. But we'll have to see.
Yeah.
These are predictions that we make at the beginning of the year.
Well, those cycles, are pretty consistent year after year. It starts and goes up, in the spring up to the summer, and then starts down in the fall to the winter. We're here at this point going up, and again,
well, there's going to be more competition, right?
There will be more. Oh, there's going to be more competition as it goes along. But right now, geez, with such, again, in 250 to 350 to up to 500, even 500 maybe a little bit high there. But geez, there's just not a lot of inventory right now in those ranges. And it depends, of course, which community you're looking at also. But you have to be very selective right now of where those properties are. And again, you have to be ready. Now interest rates. We both work with a lot of buyers.
Right.
Interest rates right now are just amazing to me. And I'm also talking to people about who I've known, as friends of mine, about refinancing, who I know are higher than those 3.5%. So again, here's an opportunity maybe for people to, as we create wealth with our investments and our properties, to look at these things and see if some of these may fit your particular needs.
And this is a great opportunity, again, if you have a lot of equity in a property and you're an older person, you have millennial kids or, whatever kind of kids that are old enough to own something. This would be a great time to sit down, have a family meeting, and strategize the financial stability of the family or the group, because some of us have families that are not blood related, but they're part of our tribe, so to speak. This is a great time to sit everybody down and say, this is a very rare opportunity. What can we do to start furthering the financial future of us as a group?
Yeah. What about distressed properties? Remember when 2009 we sold more distressed properties, short sales and foreclosures than they did regular sales. That's a lot. Those days are long past, thank goodness.
I just closed one short sale this week with Alan Broderick from I-5.
You did?
Yeah, but I think I do one a year now, and I think we did more like 30 a year.
Yeah. Well, in Jackson County, in the 3 months of November, December, January, there were 12 distressed properties sold. That's 3 a month, 4 a month, I guess. 4 a month. That's not very many. But I think that's really good. There's a few. They're still out there.
Well, and there's supposed to be a few. Like, isn't
Yeah.
the normal foreclosure rate something like 13 or 16% in a normal stable market?
No. Oh, in a normal market? Oh, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I think it's it kind of hovers right around 10ish.
Well, right here in our area, it's 2% right now.
Right now.
2% of the sales are roughly in a foreclosed property. So again, when you see a foreclosed property come up, you have to be ready now as a buyer. Many of those are online, where you have to have an agent go in and put it in for you. Or these kinds
almost
of
like an online auction.
Online auctions, and I've had clients be very successful with those. I'm amazed. They scare me.
Yeah, well, they're not always in very good shape.
When you first do it, it's kind of a scary when you're online auctioning. But now it's I understand it. You understand it a lot better.
Yeah,
how it works.
It's a great source of inventory.
Read the fine print, because there's also different opportunities in those foreclosures, where if they don't get a certain price, or you can bid beforehand. But you got to read it all.
Yeah, and some of them are charging the whole buyer side like 5 to 7% after their purchase. You got to know that you have to come up with that money.
What she's saying is that if the price is $400,000, they're going to charge you another 5% to that to make that, say, what, $440,000?
Yeah,
maybe?
sometimes.
So that's what's going to be. You're going to pay the buyer's premium, and you're going to pay it. I've always had to pay that.
Yeah, on some of those websites they do that.
Be aware of that on foreclosures online, because the price you see may not be the price that you have to pay.
Right. But then, and again, the foreclosure's been sitting empty a long time, and they're not always in great shape. Their pipes are dry. Sometimes the dirt is pulling away from the foundation.
And there's no 403B. There's no 403B loans for those. Okay, we've got a break coming up here. Pete and Alice, one more segment to go here on the Real Estate Show. Check out any of our past shows at realestateshowOregon.com. We are back after this. Welcome back to the Real Estate Show on KCMX News Media 880 and YouTube at realestateshoworegon.com. Pete Belcastro, Alice Lema with you here as we working on February towards the spring selling season of March, April, and May. Those are beautiful months in the Rogue Valley, aren't they? And they're also the 3 busiest real estate months of the year. So we're looking forward to see how it's going to play out in this kind of dynamic and very changing real estate market that we're in. Speaking of the market, we always talk about Jackson and Josephine counties. I mean, the station goes there and stuff like that. But I also just want to tell people also, don't ever forget about Klamath County, our sister to the east. Because in the real estate world, we're all in the same MLS system now. So we see everybody's properties. And what we've seen really over the course of just following it more is that many times people will start looking here, especially if they're out of towners. They'll look at Josephine County if they can't find something or it's too pricey. And a lot of people end up in Klamath County because it's the same thing as we talk about in the price ranges here.
Well, you get so much more
it's
for
more
your
affordable.
money. Yeah.
If you bought $300,000, I think if you pay $300,000 for a property here is one thing. You pay $300,000 there is a different type of thing, and so you get more. Would you say the average? Would you say the average in Klamath was?
I think it's Did we say like 279?
279 was the median price there.
And that was on half an acre with 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. 1,900 square feet. I mean, we were shocked. That's what a lot of people want. They want that small acreage, not too close to the neighbors, not too far away. Just that nice half-acre size is perfect. And a 1,900 square foot house for $279.
Or you get a 1,000 square foot house here for $279.
Yes.
In East Medford, that's what you're going to get.
Right.
Kind of thing. So,
and it might only have one bathroom down here in Jackson County. It probably only has one bathroom.
So as we go there, as we learn more about our real estate market, of course, I'm over there a lot because I grew up over there. I got properties there myself.
Well, you have family
I just
there.
bought a place there. I bought a farm there. And
you bought the farm.
It's a farm. But when you're over there a lot, there are really opportunities, especially I think for investors. The most shocking figure to me was literally half of the properties. If we have nationally, we have 67% of the homes are owner
homeowners. Yeah.
In Klamath County, it's 50%.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
We thought that was really interesting that there's literally half are rentals. So there's obviously opportunities there for investors if someone is interested
Now,
in
do you
that,
think that's
or to do
because of
that.
the schools up there, like OIT, because of the military base?
There's a lot of rentals with those, yeah. But people also can buy, and I mean, what you want to do is, I've seen people over the years, they bought a house the first time, and as they move into different areas, different things you could buy and sell, they always upgraded as they went along, to where they're creating wealth each time they moved into a new occupation or a new job. You don't have to give up your wealth and your home for that. So again, we always ponder, you create wealth by having home ownership.
Yes, you do.
Well, there's a lot of people there who may qualify to do that.
Well, that's very interesting, because if the interest rates are below 4%,
Yeah.
and in that area of Klamath, if you can buy a starter home,
Yeah.
so and we
cheap.
did not look up that price, but
Right,
we
right,
should have,
yeah.
because if you could buy a 3-bedroom 2-bath for $279 in Klamath at 1,900 square feet on half an acre, that's not a starter home, quote unquote.
Oh.
So a starter home, I wonder, is more like 120,
Oh, yeah.
150.
Well, it has a lot of old neighborhoods. It's an old town. A lot of old neighborhoods downtown, and you got to go out to the suburbs where you have the newer.
Well, I wonder.
But maybe because it's also, maybe rents there are so cheap, because it's half rental.
Well, let's look into that.
Therefore, rentals. It's more affordable to rent than buy. Is that possible?
That not only that, but I'm also starting to think along the rehab lines. So is that a market? Because we can't really do flips and rehab right now in a stable market, not as profitably, because the market's not moving. Yeah. But what if in Klamath, with the price of entry being quite a bit lower, you could do buy something, fix it up, and then sell it for a little bit more. That might. I wonder if that would work up there right now.
Well, they need housing. It's shortage. Both Klamath and Josephine County are just so short of housing. And we talk about affordable housing, whatever that means. But I mean, they really a shortage of housing, and it affects so many people and trying to get out into a better place.
So
we'll see.
If Klamath County has 50% tenant occupied properties, then that also means that it's 50% landlord owned.
Right.
So there's a lot of landlords.
Right. That's what I was saying.
There's a lot of investors already in Klamath County.
Right.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So we'll say, I don't know. We go over there a lot and look at properties and sell some, and people sometimes look at that as an alternative for you. It depends on how much house you want, where you want to live, the community you want to live in.
The payment.
No matter where you go in all three counties, it's some great places.
Yeah, and Klamath is so beautiful. I mean, I know it's a little colder in the winter, but it's just absolutely beautiful place.
Pretty this time of the year, that's for sure. I haven't heard any more, of course, from the governor, our Governor Brown. Alice says she's going to get Governor Brown on our show, by the way.
Well, so I said I was going to invite her.
Okay. I'd love to have her come in and join us. Anyway, just regarding the proposal of the tax, the real estate transfer tax, to support affordable housing. One thing we didn't mention when we talked about it before, Alice, was that the stick or the carrot, I guess, dangling out there for people if you vote on it is that the first $500,000 of a sale is exempt from the tax. We don't know what the tax is, if it's 1%, 1.5%, whatever it is.
For now.
Right.
For now, they're going to exempt it.
Right. Well, right now, it's $500,000 is exempted. Even though if you do that, then you're just picking on a group of people or group of transactions, higher prices, and throwing a tax on them, which is just...
So I'm confused because isn't this our best revenue year? Like in how long? Doesn't the state of Oregon have very full overflowing coffers?
Yeah, yes, it does, and the state is generating more revenue than it ever has in its history. And on top of that, you're adding the corporate activity tax, the gross receipts tax that is going into effect. I was at my accountant this week. I know many of our viewers and listeners, if you're in business and you're taking your stuff down to your accountant, you're going to be shocked by what they tell you, that if you have a group of businesses that you control together, or you're even a part of them, it all adds up. And individuals could also be paying that corporate activity tax. That was the scariest thing I've ever heard. And I won't even tell you what my accountant said when he thought of that tax. Because it was thrown off the air, but it wasn't a very good thing.
Well, but it is what it is, and we love Oregon, so we just have to put up with it.
I just hope that the money will go towards the classroom and to teachers and to kids, and not to pay down PERS costs that these school districts have.
Well, we'll have to see how they write the statute.
I know that they have to give. You have to apply for the funds. Okay, I just hope it goes to. It makes. I guess it makes paying the tax a little bit easier if you know it's going to go to help kids and stuff. It's not to go pay PERS. Okay. That's the soapbox for the week. Okay, we're out of time. What do you got? We're end of February.
End of February.
You more buyers right now, sellers. I know the listing thing is still the big issue out there. We're down on 600 listings in Jackson County.
So, and the only reason I keep saying that, well, first of all, I'm watching the MLS, so I am seeing more listings coming on. And yes, they are getting sold more quickly. But I also can talk, because I go to all these MLS meetings, and there's lots and lots of agents with lots and lots of properties coming online. The properties are getting ready. Right. They're getting closer to when school gets out. There's some life event they're waiting for. But I just think that we're going to have a much better selection. Yep. But if you're a seller, much better selection means
more competition.
Way more competition on price, looks, location.
But if you have your place beautiful and it's ready to go,
and you had it inspected ahead of time,
you're going to sell it. And
please
it's not
do
going to be
that.
a problem. You're going to sell it. You're going to sell it faster than the person who doesn't do that.
Yeah.
In the end, and that's what supply and demand is, and I think we're getting into that. You're right. We're going to have quite a busy coming up.
I think it's going to be a really busy year.
Yeah, I do too. Interest rates stay. It's an election year. Nothing's going to change there, and people are still excited about the economy is good. So heck, we'll see what happens in the weeks
So buy a
ahead.
house.
That'll do it for the real estate show today. I want to thank Gavin. Gavin's last name, Gavin.
Theory.
Yeah, Gavin.
Gavin Theory. Thank you, Gavin.
Our YouTube cameras as well. You got a busy week ahead, Alice, so we'll see you next week as well. Join us back here in 7 more days, the Real Estate Show here on KCMX.